This is something that happened really not that long ago. I live alone by myself in my apartment, which is on the first floor of a standard, fairly new building. As I sat by myself in the living room one night, I got a text on my cell phone out of nowhere. The text read, "I'm watching you," in all capitals. It was from a number that I did not recognize, so I had no idea who it was. When I saw this, my first reaction, and also hope, was that it was a joke by one of my friends. But part of me also felt creeped out by it. I didn't know how they would have an unknown number if it was a friend, but I also did not know who would do something like this. But I mean, come on, it just had to be a prank. That's what I was telling myself. I texted back asking who it was that was texting me. Not too long after this, I got a response. They said, "The person that is watching you," once more in all caps. I guess I should have expected an answer like that. Now, I had all my windows closed and covered in my apartment, so I found it impossible for somebody to actually be watching me. But now I was feeling paranoid. My place is small, just one bedroom, a bathroom, and then a pretty large space with a kitchen and living room in it. Still, I went around and checked all my closets and rooms and confirmed that I was alone. Then I checked out my peephole and opened my door to the hallway. The coast was clear. Finally, I went around and looked out my windows to the surroundings. My windows looked out to the parking lot, which had a good amount of cars in it, but I didn't see anybody out there at all. So it was hard to tell if anyone was watching me or not, but it sure didn't seem like it. I saw nothing obvious, but if somehow this person was in the parking lot or something like that, they couldn't see me. All they would see is my windows, because I had shades over them. I felt safe in my place, but I was still really creeped out by this. I almost texted back again, but then I decided to just block the number. If this was a prank by one of my friends, I didn't find it funny, and by blocking them, it would probably get whoever was doing it to fess up. However, I did not receive any texts at all. For the rest of the night when I was up, nothing strange happened. I felt a little spooked and checked out the windows every so often, but everything seemed fine. So that night, I was about to go to sleep. I was in my bed just doing some reading before falling asleep. Out of nowhere, I heard this knocking at my front door. It was not that loud, but it was constant. A repeated knocking sound that just kept going. I was too creeped out to get up and see who was there. I knew that my doors were locked, so I just hoped that the person would not try to break in or anything. I also instantly connected it to the texts, and this whole situation now seemed 10 times scarier. I got out my phone, ready to call the cops. The knocking went on for probably about a minute straight. Then it stopped. I was still too freaked out to move for a while. Finally, I got up and left my bedroom. I went to the peephole of my apartment and looked, but the person was gone. I stayed up for hours after that, too scared to sleep. I didn't get any more texts, and I didn't get any more knocks on the door either. I was finally able to fall asleep really late. The next day, things were fine. Since then, I haven't received any texts or strange knocks on the door. I still don't know who it was. I thought maybe it could have been a neighbor, but I obviously have no proof of that. I really have no clue. To come to my actual door and knock on it so late at night seems too far-fetched to be a prank. And if it was one of my friends, I would think that they would have said something about it by now. I still don't know who did that or why. My husband travels a lot for work, so I'm home by myself quite often in our house. This was a couple of years ago now, and he was away for several days. So one night I was in our bedroom FaceTiming him as he was in his hotel. We often FaceTime every night when we're away from each other. We talked for a while, and it was getting late, so we said goodnight to each other and then hung up. My husband said that he was going to sleep now, and I was already in bed but not that tired yet. So I put on a show and laid in bed watching it. Roughly 30 minutes later, I heard something from downstairs. It kind of sounded like someone had knocked on the door. I didn't hear it very clearly though. I was upstairs, so it was pretty far away. I listened closer, wondering if I was just imagining it or if it was possibly something else. About 30 seconds later, I heard it again. It did sound like someone was knocking at the front door. Still, I didn't hear it very clearly. I got up from my bed and looked out of our bedroom window at first, but it did not have a view of the front door, and I saw nothing. So I went out of the room to another window upstairs which would have a view of the front door area. When I got there, I looked out the window and I saw a man wearing a hooded jacket walking through our front yard, but he was moving away from the front door area and moving towards the garage. He soon went out of my sight. I didn't know who this guy was or what he was doing, but it seemed very suspicious. Why would he come to the door so late at night? And he didn't look like any of our neighbors, although I couldn't see his face. I just hoped that he would leave our property. So I went over and went downstairs, and then looked through several windows, including the front door window. Everywhere I looked, though, I didn't see the man at all. I thought that there was a good chance he had left, and that's what I was hoping. Still, I made sure that every door was locked and every window was covered. I was still feeling creeped out, though, so I tried to call my husband, but he didn't answer because he was asleep. I turned on a light to the front door outside to try to make myself feel better. Maybe if the guy came back, he would see that a light was on and leave. My fear was that he would try to break in. So I went back upstairs at that point and got back in bed. This time I did not hear any more noises, and I soon was able to relax and eventually fall asleep. However, I was awoken in the night. The first thing I remember after waking up was hearing the sound of one of the neighbors' dogs barking. I think that's what woke me up, and usually we didn't have any problems with the neighbors' dogs at all. Sometimes they might bark a little here and there during the day, but I had never woken up in the night to them that I can recall before. I didn't know whose dog exactly it was, because several of our neighbors have them. The dog was barking repeatedly and pretty loud. I was quickly wide awake. Out of curiosity and a little bit out of suspicion from earlier, I went downstairs. When I got there, I looked out of several windows, but everything seemed fine. I saw nothing. And shortly after I got down there, the dog stopped barking. So at that point, I went back upstairs and once more fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up, and things seemed fine. It was now bright and sunny outside, and I walked outside. However, when I got to the back patio area, I saw something that left me speechless. By the back door, there were a bunch of marks on the wall right next to it, and some on the door as well. It looked as though someone had been trying to pry the door open. The marks had certainly not been there before. I was shocked, and I took pictures and sent them to my husband. He told me to call the police. I realized that it was possibly from the man I had seen the previous night. I then also realized that the dog barking was probably from the man in our backyard. A neighbor's dog must have seen him and started barking, and that's probably what scared the man off. Had that not happened, he may have broken into our house. The police came out and I told them everything. My husband told me that I should stay at my parents' house until he got back, and I did that because I was too creeped out to stay in our house by myself. The man did not return though. When my husband returned, we ended up getting a camera set up, but nothing suspicious has happened like that since then. I'm grateful to the neighbor's dog for possibly saving me or saving our house from being robbed. One time back in the 1990s when I was in high school, I was left home alone. Me being home by myself was something that very rarely happened because I have a large family. Living in the house was my parents, my older brother and sister, me, and then my 2 younger sisters as well. So with all those people, the chances were that somebody would be home pretty much all the time. Now, I don't remember where everyone had to go on this particular night, but it just so happened that everyone had places to go except for me. So for a few hours that night, I would have the house to myself. I was not nervous at all because I wasn't a little kid, I was in high school, but it still felt really odd just because I was not used to it. I remembered that the house felt very quiet. It was dark outside, and our neighborhood was pretty typical. A good amount of other houses on the street, but things were mostly pretty quiet. At one point, maybe an hour or two into being home by myself, I went downstairs from my room to go to the kitchen. This was on the main floor and towards the back of the house. There I was getting something to drink when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Much of the lights in the house were off, so I could see out the back windows better. We had a door that led out to the back patio, and I saw someone outside approaching it. I could tell right away though that it was not my parents and none of my siblings. It looked like some random guy. He didn't seem to notice me because I was entering the kitchen from an angle that was not really in his line of vision. Plus, it was mostly dark in the house. It was like right when I came around the corner to enter the kitchen, I saw him. I stopped and froze where I was. The man continued to approach the back door. I was now in the kitchen and near this door that led down to the basement. I then looked back over at the door where the man was headed and realized that it was unlocked. This gave me a terrible feeling of panic. In that split second, I did what was kind of a reaction to that, and I quickly opened up the basement door, which I was very close to. It was already slightly open, and I went inside and then shut the door behind me. Just when I did, I heard the back door to the house opening. I then quickly ran down the stairs. Our basement was finished, but there wasn't much down there. The stairs had carpet, which I'm glad for because it made my footsteps very quiet. I then went into kind of the main basement area where we had a couch and an old TV. We had some blankets on the floor next to the couch, and I literally hid under them. At first, when I got down there, I heard footsteps upstairs of the man walking. I could not tell where he was going though. I just hoped that he wouldn't go down into the basement where I was. I wanted to call my parents or the police, but could not. I didn't have a cell phone back then, and we did not have a home phone in the basement, only upstairs. I hid under the blankets for the longest time, and I didn't hear or see anything as I was covered. After I'm not even sure how long, I finally got up the courage to get up. I emerged and did not hear anything. The man had definitely not come down to the basement. After listening and not hearing anything at all for a while, I carefully made my way back up the stairs. When I got up to the top, I slowly and quietly opened the door to the kitchen from the basement. I looked around and saw nothing. There was a phone in the kitchen though, so I just needed to get it. After I got the phone, I then brought it back down to the basement. In that time, I still heard and saw nothing. I was hoping that the man had left. I called the police from the basement and told them that a man had entered our house, and I gave them the address. I didn't know if the guy was still there or not, but I knew that I should call to be safe. So I waited down in the basement until the cops got there, and I figured that the man was probably long gone by now. When the police arrived, I went upstairs and let them into the house. Then the police searched the entire place. To my surprise, they found the man hiding upstairs in my bedroom of all places. I was shocked. My parents got home not long after, as well as some of my siblings. I don't remember a whole lot after that, but it was certainly a crazy experience. I do not know exactly why the man chose our house, or if there was a reason he went to my room. The back door had been left unlocked with so many of us living there and coming and going, but after that, everyone always made sure to lock it. This is something that happened back when I was in college. During my freshman year, I lived alone in a dorm room, which was in an all-girls building. It was a pretty standard place, where I just had my bed, a desk, a dresser in the room, and then a few things that I had brought. I also had a small couch and a mini fridge. But there was no bathroom in my room, so there was a community bathroom down the hallway that everybody would share. It wasn't too bad though, because the bathroom had about 8 small individual rooms in it. So one night I stayed up really late doing homework. I was probably up until around midnight working on assignments and studying. This is not something that I did every single night, but sometimes you have to. So after finally getting done with homework, I went to use the bathroom before going to bed. I left my dorm room, took a right down the hallway, and then made a left to the bathroom, which were a ways down. I never bothered to lock my door when I would use the bathroom, because I would just be gone for a few minutes. Plus, nobody was out in the hallways or anything. There really wasn't a need to. There were locks from the outside to the building anyways. When I went to the bathroom, nobody else was in there, and things were completely silent. I was in there for a few minutes brushing my teeth, and then when I came back to my room, I went inside. All my lights were off except for a lamp in the corner at my desk, and the TV was playing at a low volume. I went to the desk, turned off the lamp, and then got into my bed. So I remember that I was facing the wall, and I closed my eyes, and within probably a minute started to drift off to sleep. However, suddenly I heard the sound of my door opening. When I heard it, I shot up in bed, and then turned over to the door to see what was happening. I just barely saw what appeared to be a man leaving my dorm room. I didn't see his face at all, just part of the back of him. He shut the door behind him and was gone. I was so confused, but I knew that a man was not supposed to be in here at all. I got up and quickly went over to the door and locked it. Then I decided to call campus safety and report it. An officer came to the building and looked around, but found no one. So whoever had been there was now gone. I was still very confused. After that, nothing else crazy like that happened in my time in college, but I still don't know what exactly happened that night. I figure that the man entered my dorm room when I was in the bathroom. There's no way I wouldn't have seen or heard him if he was in my room prior to that. There's also some places that he could have hid temporarily, and with pretty much all the lights off, I might not have seen him. I still can't believe that he was in my room at all, though. I'm glad that he left, and for a short time I thought that maybe he just had the wrong room. But why would he hide like that? I really don't know what was happening there. At the end of the day, I'm just glad that he left and that nothing bad happened. Something really weird happened at my apartment a few months ago. So, I live by myself. I have a one-bedroom apartment and I've been living here for a few years. For the most part, it's a pretty nice building. There's several levels and I'm on the second floor. I have many neighbors, but I don't really know any of them and I don't see them too often. One night, I was at home by myself and there was a knock at my front door very late. It was probably close to midnight. So right away, I knew that something was off. I wasn't expecting anyone. This rose my suspicions, and I went to the door to see who was there. When I looked through the small peephole in the door to the other side, I saw something strange. There was a man standing there wearing a suit and sunglasses. For whatever reason, I do not know why, I decided to answer the door. Even though it was creepy and late at night, I guess I just felt brave, or like the guy wouldn't do anything bad. I opened the door, and the guy just stood there a couple of steps away looking at me. But when I opened it, I also noticed that there were 4 other guys all wearing suits and sunglasses. It was the weirdest thing. They were standing farther back, a slight ways down the hallway. I asked if I could help them, and I'm sure that I seemed very confused because I was. The man in front of me seemed to look at me, as did the others, but nobody said anything. I looked at everyone else, and they were all just staring at me. I asked them who they were and what they were doing. They all just stared at me, but said nothing. Then, at once just about, every single one of them began to walk towards me. It started with the guys that were farther away, and then the guy right in front of me started to approach as well. I did the logical thing, which was to slam the door very quickly and then lock it. When I did, they actually tried to open my door. I yelled that I was going to call the cops. They stopped trying to open the door, but this did not scare them off. Now all the men just stood in the hallway staring at my door. I watched through the peephole. They were all just looking at my door, standing next to each other. I was so creeped out. I didn't leave the door and just kept watching them. I was debating actually calling the cops. This went on for quite some time. Then, finally, after probably 2 or 3 minutes of like a standoff, they all just walked away. When they were gone, I looked down the hallway and confirmed it. After that, they did not come back. I'm still left wondering what that was all about. Was it just a group of guys trying to scare people to be funny or something? I'm really not sure, but it was the weirdest thing that's ever happened in my time living here. I'm hoping that I never see those guys again.